Welcome, everybody, to WagerTalk Today. This is going to be a great show. There is so much to talk about, so much to unpack as far as actionable information goes, betting, advice, what we do. Brian Leonard will be right off the top. He's going to look at Iowa State and Houston in college basketball, as well as Detroit at Seattle. That smells like an NHL game to me. Brian Power after that, Kansas State and Texas at a championship league game. And we're going to end the show with Carmine Bianco talking Winnipeg and Calgary and Atletico Madrid at Inter Milan. We're going to talk about Teddy's anniversary dinner a little later as well. I'm going to show you guys whether you should buy a house or rent a house. Teddy covers with me. I'm Lawrence Presman. Brian Leonard right off the bat. Let's start with Iowa State at Houston. Houston is minus 9.5. How do we bet this play? And welcome, obviously, to the best show on the planet.
I appreciate that. When I sent this over, it was 9.5 last night. It's gone down to 9 now as money has come in on Iowa State. And yeah, there's plenty of reasons to bet on Iowa State here. These are two teams with extreme home court advantages. Between the two, they're a combined 31-1 straight up at home this year. In fact, only one team in this league has had a losing record at home, and that's West Virginia at 8-9. And only 3 teams in this league have a winning road record, and 2 are involved in this one here on Monday. The Cyclones beat Houston at home 57-53 6 weeks ago. They have an offensive effective field goal percentage of 53.2. Defensively, 48.1. In the previous game these two teams played, they were both held the opposition to the lowest scoring output of the season. So it was a very low-scoring game the first time they played, 57-53. And while the Cougars can't live up to the shooting of the Cyclones with an offensive effective field goal percentage of 49.5, they are excellent defensively, 43.2%, number 1 in the country in that regard. Not only is Houston playing with revenge from an earlier meeting, they've dropped 7 of the last 8 in this series. Iowa State has had their number. Iowa State's a very good underdog. But the problem is, in this league, as well as many others this year, the home teams have had a tremendous advantage. I talked about that earlier in this one. And Houston being undefeated at home with revenge here. I like Houston minus the 9. But I fully understand why people are playing Iowa State, because they're playing a hell of a basketball right now, and they've done very well in this series.
So you talked about the series history. I mean, these teams have only played once in recent memory, and that's the first meeting between these two teams this year. Prior to that, everything was 2010 and earlier. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, that was a defensive struggle, 57-53. It wasn't like Houston didn't they shot 38% for the game. But they couldn't get looks from inside the arc. They took more than half of their shots from three-point range in that content. Iowa State was able to keep them out of the paint. Given Iowa State's strength defensively, given Houston coming off, obviously, a pretty big win of their own, isn't this a spot that maybe it's too many points, Brian? Because, boy, this price, at 8.5, I'm seeing 8.5 popping up right now. 9 the prevailing number. But that's a lot of points to lay against Iowa State.
It is, and if this wasn't such a small schedule, it wouldn't even have made my card. My line on this is 9, so I don't have the advantage I normally have on a normal day where I can have 4 or 5 games with a 2-point advantage. I don't have it here, and like I said, the money is coming in on Iowa State, and I can't disagree with anybody. But the way the home teams have played in this conference, and I mentioned 3 teams with winning road records. Iowa State's one of them, but they're only 5-4. Straight up on the road. They've done all their damage at home. Iowa State may be the right side here, but I think the value is with Houston slightly, and with the limited card we have today in college basketball. I wanted to pick out a game that most people have heard of the teams that are playing.
So, Bri, it's President's Day. A lot of NHL goes during the day today. We got a game starting in 25 minutes. The Leafs start in an hour. And Seattle and Detroit at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Here's Seattle at minus 130, give or take. I find this team a tough team to get a handle on. So I'm curious how you're going to bet this game.
Yeah, we talked before we got on today, and I was talking about how your team, Toronto, is a club I had a good handle on earlier in the season, and it's just failed lately. I have not won a game involving Toronto, I think, in 2 months now. Luckily, I don't play a lot of those games, but Seattle is a team I do have a lot of success with, and we ran that streak earlier this year where they were playing terrific goaltending and terrific defense, and it made us a lot of money. And this is a team I'm looking to back when I have a chance because I do think they're underrated. You go back the last 10 games, Detroit is 5-4-1. That's pretty good. But if you take a look at their 5-on-5 goal percentage, they're at 40.91, expected goals of 42.24. So this is a Detroit team who's been getting very lucky as of late and are getting the key goals in these games that are really close. So I'm looking to fade Detroit here. And compare that to Seattle's 58.06 goal percentage, 51.36 expected goal percentage the last 10 games. They've also won 4 or 5 lifetime meetings with Detroit. The only loss coming by a single goal. Now, it is their first game back after splitting 4 on the road, but they're well rested. I believe they've had the last 3 days off. So we get this contest here where they face the likes of Vancouver and a rising Minnesota team as well as Boston on deck. This is the game Seattle needs to have here, and the price is fair in my regard at this 130 number here. So I like Seattle here. That's my second favorite NHL play today. My first favorite is a 5% play. I've got a 5% in the NHL today, as well as 2 plays in college basketball. We continue to grind out profit in college basketball all season long, up to number 5 on the site. A nice profitable day here for us, or a season for us. So yeah, we're going to go with these 2 games today, but the big plays are the 5% play in the NHL today.
Brian, you talked a little bit about the series history between the Red Wings and the Kraken. And, they only played 5 times. 3 of the 5 have gone into overtime, and the other 2 were tight as well. Is that one of the things you're going to look at when making a case for a dog? Like a series history that looks pretty even, and they're getting a plus price with 2 relatively even teams? Is that conceptually what we're looking for here?
Yeah, I like to find teams. In fact, I had one the other day in which the 2 times they played, it was the Philadelphia game against the Islanders, and it was a situation where the teams had played in overtime both games they played, and so it was a situation where I thought they had a very good price on what is really a neutral ice as opposed to a home ice. So yeah, that's what I look for. It didn't work out in that one, but most of the time you're in pretty good shape if you can find that matchup where the underdog is shown that they can go to the wire with the better team.
Brian Leonard, everybody. Guys, don't forget Brian has a 5% play up tonight in NHL. I have seen the play. It is presidentially approved. Not that Brian cares. But hey, I'm rolling in NHL, and I love your play tonight, Bri. I wish you nothing but the best, man. Guys, head over to WagerTalk.com. If you're going to buy one play and one play only today, it doesn't get much better than Brian Leonard's 5% plays. He's had an outstanding record in his NHL. I mean, my God, the guy is an NHL machine. Okay, Bri, get out of here, my brother. Teddy covers. So much to unpack today. I did not miss you on Friday. What did bettors learn?
So I want to talk about Purdue Boilermakers right now. But I'm going to start by talking about college football. In college football, the best teams don't lose. Maybe they'll suffer 1 loss all year. Maybe the national title winner, not unusual to be undefeated, almost never a 2-loss team. College hoops is different. Longer season, more games, more flat spots, more tough road tilts. There's better balance in many conferences in hoops compared to football. Big Ten, a prime example of that, where in football, the best teams, 20, 30, 40 points better than everyone else. In basketball, man, they're bunched up tight. Virginia in college basketball became the first number 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. Was that 2019? And next year they came to the tournament with a chip on their shoulder. They played great, and they won the whole thing. Whose first national title? That was 2019 under Tony Bennett. So they lost to the number 1 seed in 2018 and won the title the following year. Purdue last year bounced in the first round as a number 1 seed, only the second team in history to be bounced as a number 1 seed. Virginia was that first. And of course, they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. So we ask ourselves, what do we do with Purdue this year? Are they capable of following a similar path that Virginia did with Tony Bennett in 2019? They've elite, they were rated top 5 all year. Elite big man, elite perimeter shooting, strong defensive team. And yet every time I watch Purdue, I'm convinced they ain't going to be a Virginia. This is not a national title team. I don't think it's a Final Four team. What Purdue is a great regular season team. Doesn't mean you're not going to find spots to bet against them. I bet against them yesterday, cashed in with Ohio State's outright upset victory over the Boilermakers. But there is a difference in college hoops between great regular season teams and great tournament teams. I'm betting a no on Boilermakers futures. I think athleticism is going to get in the postseason. And Matt Painter, sorry, he's no Tony Bennett. Not even close. I'm betting the no on Boilermakers futures, even though they've had a strong regular season. We'll talk more about teams primed for a strong regular season when it comes to Big Game Breakdown today. Lawrence?
Yeah, and Teddy, after our big game breakdown, we're going to talk a little bit about your anniversary dinner and what a pain in the ass it was for me specifically.
Sure,
nice color blazer, I must say. Looking good. Okay, so Friday's show was spectacular, at least from my perspective. Not only was Teddy not on the show, which immediately makes it a better show, but me, Gianni, and Steve Merrill, for some reason, accidentally found ourselves talking about financial advice and, metals and crypto and housing and mutual funds and stocks. And we got an unbelievable response to that show. We had more comments on that show than we've had maybe ever on WagerTalk Today, but I did make a statement and I said, buying a house is not a good investment. And a lot of people challenged me on that statement, which I totally respect, as we've all been brainwashed by our parents in history, including me. I own a house. So I spent the weekend actually doing a lot of research on this topic and putting together a bunch of information for you guys. Now, full disclosure, I am not an expert. Not only am I not an expert on the housing market, I'm not a mortgage expert. I'm also not a tax expert. And most importantly, I don't live in America. So I'm going to discuss this from an American perspective. But please understand, if you think I'm wrong, if my math doesn't work for you, point it out. Let this conversation be the start of your journey, not the end of your journey. I am not going to stand here and say I'm right. I'm just going to stand here and give you my thoughts, my opinions, and my math. Feel free to blow it all apart if your name is anything but Teddy. Okay, so Dan, let's put chart 1 up. So these are facts. In America, across all states and cities, the average medium-sized house in 1990 cost $120,000. Now, I did this all on a 30-year term, as that is what mortgages are. Also, just to let you know, mortgages in Canada and America are very, very different. We don't have 30-year terms. We have 3-year terms and 5-year terms in it. And then you can't get a long-term 30-year rate. But anyway, the average home in 1990 is $120,000. The average medium-sized home in 2020, 30 years later, is $40,000. So I have some assumptions. Assumption 1, when I discuss this math, monthly mortgage payments, I'm making the same as rent. So if you own a house and you're paying $2,000 a month in mortgage, we are assuming if you're renting a house, you're paying $2,000 in rent. So the two of them wash. It's actually not the case. The average renter is paying 52% less than the average mortgage. However, they're usually in an apartment or a smaller house. So I'm going to make it the same. So all monthly payments are a wash. The second thing is, I'm assuming that at the end of your 30-year mortgage, you own your house outright. Also, the New York Stock Exchange over the last 30 years has produced a 10.4% return annually. The S&P 500 over the last 100 years has returned an 11.4% interest annually. Now, obviously, there are ups and there are downs, there's crashes and there's bull markets and bear markets, but those are the average numbers. So let's go. Dan, put up chart number 2. So let's assume you buy a house for 20% down. That $120,000 house, you put $24,000 on it. You have the average interest rate across America over the last 30 years is 7.78%. I'm going to lowball that and do it at 7%. Now, that actually equates to $210,000, but because the principal of your house increases, the interest will decrease. So I have that number and I made it $100,000. Property tax. Every place is different. I pay $20,000 a year in property tax. I did this at $1,000 a year. That's $30,000 in property tax, maintenance fees, $50,000. That's very low. And real estate fees upon selling the house, normally 6%. I was generous to homeowners. I did it at 4%. That's $14,000. So at the end of the 30 years, minus your monthly payments, you have put $218,000 into that house. You sell that house for $340,000. You make a profit of $122,000. Dan, chart 3. Now, instead of putting the $24,000 into your home, put it into the S&P. 10% interest, which is lower than what the S&P has averaged, doubles every 7 years. The bottom line is, at the end of 30 years, that $24,000 is $464,000. Minus the $24,000, you have a net profit of $440,000. Chart 3, chart 4. So, to summarize, if you own a house over a 30-year period at 20% down, you have a net profit of $122,000. If you took that 20% and put it into the market, you have a net profit of $440,000. That's a difference of $318,000. Now, keep in mind, I'm not fully up on the tax structure, but I am told from a capital gains perspective that it is roughly the same. But even if your mutual funds are taxed and the selling of your house is not taxed, it will still not cover the $318,000. Also, keep in mind, there are periods of time in the market. If you buy really low and 3 years later you sell high, yes, you can make money and it might have been better than a mutual fund. But I'm not talking about the concept of flipping homes. I'm talking about the concept of living in a home. There are some pros to buying homes. The main reason that our parents told us to buy a home was it forces savings. It forces the people to put money away every single month into a hard asset that ultimately will appreciate and they will sell. Without that house, people would require a ton of discipline, and most people don't have that discipline. Another pro of buying a house is you can do what the hell you want with the house. You can build a pool, you can break a wall down, you can remodel, whatever you want. And of course, a house is a home. And if you're having a family, you don't want to be uprooted every time your tenant decides that he wants more money or decides that, he's going to move in himself. You own the house, you could stay in the house for 30 years, 40 years, do whatever you want. I own a house. I am talking about, from a strict investment perspective, the difference between buying a house and renting a house is radical. You will make way more money if you rent, but it will be a bit of a pain in the ass. You might be moving around a lot. So that's really my take on whether you should buy a house or rent a house. Teddy, I know you have some stuff you wanted to add.
Oh, no, we're done with this topic. The only thing I'm going to say is that for all of your yap, where you go 6 minutes there on a sports show about mortgages, for all of that, you own a house, Merrill owns a house,
Yeah.
I own a house. It's not, your whole life is not about what the best investment And not only have you bought a house, you've done it multiple times. You bought and sold and bought and sold and moved your family around the neighborhood multiple times in buying. So everything you're saying is bullshit because you didn't do it.
And I'm going to explain that. And I'm glad you asked that. You said that. So in the past, and also up until pretty recently, your options were to buy a house or rent an apartment. I didn't want to rent an apartment. Now there are VC companies all over North America where incredible amount of rich people have pooled their money, and those people are buying homes to rent. As we move forward, there will be houses that are equal to what you would own available to rent. That was not available to me when I was young, and that wasn't even available 5 years ago. The future will not be about buy a house or rent an apartment. The future will be about buy a house or rent a house. Brian Power, how are you, my friend?
I am doing great, and I like my house, Prez. Thank you for using the picture of it, by the way, on your graph there. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Listen, dude, we all own a house. Teddy wasn't at the show on Friday, thank God. But the concept was, what is better from an investment perspective? Anyway, Bri, let's get straight into some actionable information. We got Carmine Bianco still to come. Kansas State is playing Texas tonight. How do we bet this game?
Yeah, so Brian Leonard talked about the Big 12 earlier. I'll throw in one thing to back up his play on Houston there. That is a ranked versus ranked matchup. You've got two top 25 teams. When you've got that this year, the favorite, the home favorite, is covered at a 67% rate, 22-11 against the numbers. So that trend certainly supports what Brian said. The opening segment, I'm going to talk about two Big 12 teams that are not ranked. That is Kansas State and Texas. I'll get the bad stuff out of the way first, as I often do. Kansas State, Teddy, yes, is a bottom four team in the Big 12, and there is a gap between that bottom four and the top 10. The Wildcats, how did they end January? Not well. 3 consecutive double-digit losses. Those were at Iowa State, at Houston, two of the best teams, and then at home to Oklahoma, which no doubt about it is a bad loss. Now, none of what I've said thus far makes the Wildcats appealing tonight, nor does the fact that they are now 1-6 straight up in their last 7 games. 3 of those losses came as a favorite. They even lost at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, it's either them or West Virginia, is the worst team in the Big 12. I don't think there's any argument there. That all being said, guys, I think this is too many points for Texas to be laying. They have the same conference record as Kansas State. They just got whipped down in Houston themselves over the weekend, did the Longhorns. They're now 2-4 straight up their last 6 overall. Brian Leonard brought up how good home teams have been for the most part against the number in Big 12 play. That is absolutely accurate. However, Texas, 13-4 straight up in Austin, but just 5-12 against the spread. As a favorite this year, 11-4 straight up, just 5-10 against the spread. And then you throw in each of Kansas State's last 3 losses by 6 points or fewer. Had they not gone a atrocious 1 of 13 from 3 at home against TCU over the weekend, they probably win that game. And this, to me, Teddy, feels like a Texas win, but non-cover. I say that not only because of what I've said thus far, but 7 of Kansas State's last 10 games decided by 6 points or fewer. I'd take the dog here at plus 7.5 or better.
So the Longhorns have been pretty darn good at bouncing back off a loss this year, even off their first loss of the season when they lost to UConn back in November. They won by 23 the next time out. They got a 27-point win off a loss. They won at Cincinnati as a 5-point dog off a loss. They won against Baylor off a loss. They took Houston to overtime and covered off a loss. They beat West Virginia by 36 off a loss. And now they're coming off a loss here. Does that worry you at all? They've been real good in this role, a team that has gotten their act together fast, immediately following the mass majority of their defeats so far this season.
Yeah, it does. And like I said, there is a definite gap between these two teams, but I think it's been over accounted for here by the odds makers, quite frankly, Teddy. And you look at also what Texas has got coming up, a road game at Kansas. Might this one not? I know that, to your point, they have performed great off a loss. They're at home. You would expect a focused effort, but I'm expecting a focused effort as well. I mean, we can't run through all those games you just went through where Texas off a loss, what the opponent's situation was, but Kansas State, a team that has typically played everyone close while they have come up short, admittedly, they're coming in focused given how dire things have been. And need I remind you what happened a couple weeks ago on Big Monday, Kansas State, admittedly at home. Yes, I know they did beat Kansas at home.
Bri, you are absolutely dominating right now. I think you're up, 80 units of profit in the last little while. 112, the last 12 months, 80 units of profit in basketball. 2-0 sweep last night, last Monday. Why am I talking about last Monday? Like,
well, because I wanted to tell the people what I've got. Yes.
Oh, you
I wanted
came
to tell
on the
people.
show.
No, okay. I wanted to tell the people what I did last Monday. On Big Monday, we had Texas Tech first half and full game. They boat raced Kansas in a very easy win. We went 2-0. And tonight, guess what? I have a best bet on Big Monday. It was not that game I just broke down. A different game. You talked about the 80 units of profit. Most of that is this season. We're up 47 units, NBA and college combined this year. Love the one college play I have tonight. Best bets going back to Christmas, all sports, Prez, 32-18, all sports.
Wonderful.
Really, really like that play. I also have two soccer plays on the docket. If you want the full card, that's $29, WT.buzz/BP.
Man, I love when you guys come on. And I mean, Carmine is up next. He's had a great weekend. It makes me so happy when you guys are rolling in sports betting. I mean, it's what we do. It's what Wager Talk is all about. And just, yeah. Okay. Calm down, Prez. Dortmund versus PSV. PSV. It was in Paris Saint-Germain. What PSV? What's the V?
We're talking the Netherlands, not France here. Close. They do border each other over in Europe. Hopefully, I do not confuse the listeners too much with all the European countries and different competitions here. I know Carm will be enthralled by this breakdown. Let's talk Champions League round of 16 here. For those less familiar, these teams play twice, one home, one away, and whoever is ahead on aggregate after the two legs advances to the next round. PSV and Dortmund, this is priced as the most competitive round of 16 matchup. German side, Dortmund, they won the group of death in the group stage here of the Champions League, but they are facing what has been by far the best team in the Netherlands this season, PSV. Let's talk about what they've done in the Eredivisie this year. That is the Dutch league. 22 matches domestically. They have won 20 of them. The other two are draws, so no losses domestically. Obviously, the Bundesliga over in Germany is a stronger league. But even though Dortmund won that group of death here in the Champions League competition, I thought they were a little fortunate to do so. They conceded 10.4 XG in those 6 matches, only conceded 4 actual goals. So XG numbers indicate a little bit of luck there. On the domestic front, Dortmund's been a little underwhelming of late as well. 1-1 draw with Wolfsburg over the weekend. 0-0 draw with Heidenheim, who's very bad a few weeks ago. 2 bottom half teams in Germany. Again, I don't think odds makers are giving PSV, a team that just doesn't lose very often, enough credit here. I will grab the plus price on the 3-way line. That means they do have to win, PSV. A draw would mean a loss for those who are less familiar with soccer betting. But I just think that this is a tremendous price on a side that has been this good playing at home. And they need to win this one, guys, because they know going back to Germany for the second leg, it's going to be tough to win there. Oh, by the way, Dortmund has lost 8 of its last 9 away knockout matches in the Champions League going back a few years. Give me PSV at a plus price. That is tomorrow afternoon, round of 16 in the Champions League.
There we go. Brian Power, everyone. Outstanding stuff. Good luck tonight, my friend. Keep the run going. It makes me very happy. Teddy, man, you and I need to talk next time. We're basically wearing the same color. Like, what are the odds of two guys wearing salmon on the same show?
I have like a dozen jackets, so once every 12 days, you'll probably run into me wearing this one.
You do an equal rotation?
No, it's not 100% equal, but yeah. I mean, they tend to go. Yeah, I tend to try to run through the jackets that I have. Yes, the sport coats.
Okay, Theodore.
Quick correction.
Yep.
And we all know that Netherlands does not border France. Certainly not in Europe. There is a border between them in the Caribbean. On the French
Caribbean.
Antilles, yes.
Netherlands,
the Dutch Antilles versus the French.
Dutch
French,
Antilles.
whatever. Yeah.
There's actually,
yeah. But
Belgium is actually
in Europe.
between.
Belgium is between them. I was sitting there going, "Here, they're the border." I'm like, "No, they don't. I took a train."
That was a long time ago when we traveled the world, my brother. Oh, that was fun. Oh, I got a lot of action, dude. I got a lot of freaking action. Okay, it's time for your big game breakdown.
Let's do it. This is not a game. However, this is a team. And it is time to start talking MLB previews here on WagerTalk Today. Pitchers and catchers reporting. Spring training upon us. And there's a couple of teams that really stand out right at the start of spring training. I'm going to talk about one today. We're talking about season-long wagers. That team, of course, is the best team in baseball, the LA Dodgers. And no, it's not that close. When we look at what the Dodgers have put together this year, they're lined at a 103.5 wins. They won 100 games last year. They won 100 games last year with a rotation that was in tatters, with a bullpen that was banged up, and with a lineup that's not nearly as good as they have this year. And that was a 100-win team, and they didn't play well in September. All right? When we look at this team right now, what they have, I mean, let's just start with this. 1, 2, 3 in the order. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Ohtani. Maybe the three best players in the game, you know. You have an all-star catcher. You have a Gold Glover in right field. You have a guy who's hit 35 or more home runs 4 times the last 6 years at third base. You have Gavin Lux back at shortstop this year. You have the Outman in center field who was amazing last year. And that's just the lineup. Then you start looking at the pitching. And, of course, the starting pitching is loaded. What do they go, 8 deep, 9 deep? They just re-signed Kershaw. I don't even know where he's going to go right now. You know, Glasnow, Bobby Miller, Paxton, Yamamoto. You know, this is even without Ohtani pitching. And you look at the bullpen, and the bullpen's even better. It's the best bullpen in baseball. So you're the best starting staff in baseball, the best lineup in baseball, the best bullpen in baseball. The Dodgers are a regular season team. Don't know what they're going to do in the postseason. Not going to ask them to do anything in the postseason. What I'm going to ask them to do is win 104 games. And on paper, this team could win 124 games. All right? That's how good the Dodgers are. They have lapped the field. And when it comes to revenues, they need to make moves. They'll make moves at the deadline. The farm system, stacked. They're as deep as any team that I've seen. Over 103.5 wins. Makes perfect sense to this better. Square or no square, Dodgers are loaded, and they will be regular season juggernauts. Lawrence?
Love that bet. Makes total sense to me. With that said, boo Dodgers. So, Theodore, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, and then I'll tell the story. Tell us about your anniversary dinner, 10 years with your beautiful wife, Kara. How did it go?
We had a fantastic meal. It truly was a very special night. And I guess I didn't know going in. Kara made some fancy reservation at some place that I didn't know. You asked me what it was. I gave you the wrong name on there. L'Atelier by Joël Robuchon at the MGM. And it was, truly a spectacular. It was one of those where they bring you all the little dishes. What's it called?
Kara texted me after and said the foie gras ravioli was to die for. I can't stand foie gras. You liked it though?
It was to die for.
Okay. So, guys, the reason I brought this up was a real quick story. So, Teddy on Thursday says, I'm missing Friday's show. Thursday is my 10-year anniversary. I'm going to take Kara for a incredible dinner. I'm like, oh, what restaurant are you going to? He's like, Beauchamp. I think it's in the Venetian. So I call Rick, who's, one of my partners at WagerTalk, and I said, Rick, it's Teddy's 10th year anniversary. Why don't we call the restaurant and cover the bill and pay the whole bill? Let him tell the waiter to tell him when he gets there, the bill has been taken care of by WagerTalk. Order anything you want, go crazy, expensive wine, go nuts, bill's covered. Rick's like, great idea, let's do it. So I call this restaurant, Beauchamp, whatever, at the Venetian. They've never heard of Teddy. I'm like, what do? I then proceed to spend an hour calling every single restaurant in the Venetian. Do you have a Teddy there? No. Do you have a reservation? No. So now I'm an hour and a half into my day of trying to track down every goddamn restaurant in the Venetian, only to find out that there is a Beauchamp in MGM. So I call there. No, they don't have a reservation there. But we do have a restaurant, L'Atelier, which is owned by some Beauchamp guy. Try there. So I call there. I'm like, yeah, I did it. I found it. 2 hours later. So I say to the lady, I'd like to cover the bill. Can I give you my credit card? She's like, no, we don't do that. You have to do that 2 days in advance. And you have to sign this and sign that. And I'm like, oh, damn, I guess I'll just call Teddy and tell him we're going to cover your bill at WagerTalk. So I call Teddy. He doesn't answer. Call his wife. She doesn't answer. Call Teddy. Call his wife. 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 Finally, Teddy answers the phone. What do you want? I'm like, Teddy, I want to cover your bill tonight at the restaurant. Screw you. I don't need you to cover my bill. That's embarrassing. It's my 10-year anniversary. I'll cover the bill myself. Screw you. Pretty much how that went down. Yet, I still covered your bill. But I had to do it with your wife, you idiot. I had to call Kara and be like, what the hell's wrong with that twit that you're married to? Ungrateful schmobo. She's like, don't worry, I'll send you the bill. And it was a hefty bill for two people.
So I have multiple things to respond to. First of all, as you know, I don't drink, so I'm not going to order any expensive wine. I ordered mocktails that I wouldn't have ordered. So we got these $10 mocktails that I probably wouldn't have ordered otherwise. I'm like, all right, you guys are paying for it. So it cost you an extra $20, booze-wise. That's issue one. The bigger issue, Lawrence, the big, you're telling me, oh, go whatever you want. We'd have gotten the same thing with or without WagerTalk buying dinner. I'm sitting there getting ready for my anniversary dinner. All right. I'm in the shower. I'm getting Isaac situated. I'm getting everything ready. And you're freaking buzzing me over and over again. The phone's ringing. You're like bomb calling me. It's like, dude, no, I'm getting ready. I finally get in the car. You're calling me again. Dude, what's up? What the F do you want? You're bugging me on my anniversary when I'm in the car with my wife because you haven't expressed any of the things that you actually said you were going to do.
Because you weren't answering your phone.
All I have is you just harassing me as I'm trying to get to it, which sometimes you do, Lawrence. You get all excited. You freaking text and call until somebody. I'm like, dude, bugger off. I'm trying to enjoy my night with my wife, not be interrupted by you. And then you're like, oh, yeah, well, this is what you do. All right. You're like, well, we're going to pay for it, but we're not actually going to pay for it. You pay for it and then send us the bill. I'm like, that's embarrassing. If you guys want to take care of it, take care of it. I'm going to sit there and go, oh, please take care of my anniversary dinner. Then, I'm going to say,
my God,
in my mind, that's humiliating and embarrassing.
You know what?
I wasn't your wife
was grateful.
I'm like, screw it.
At least your wife was grateful. The bottom line is,
after the fact,
WagerTalk tried to pay for Teddy's bill, which was in the serious hundreds of dollars. And not only was he not grateful then, he's not even grateful now. Carmine Bianco
I sent you a nice text yesterday.
Yes,
I sent you a nice text yesterday.
Text. And you know what, Teddy? In all seriousness, regardless, I know who you are. I understand your ungrateful, selfish desires to annoy people. I love you. I have genuine, deep affection for you. Carmine Bianco, when I paid your bill, You were way more grateful than that.
You
show.
paid his bill. You didn't
Well, they were
pay
allowed
my
to take
bill.
the credit card.
It's a different story. It's a whole. If you'd have called me and said, "Hey, your bill's covered. We paid for it," it would have been a whole different reaction. Instead, you're like, "No,
I tried.
deal with
Maybe
it."
next time you don't make me call every restaurant in all of freaking Vegas. Carm.
Yeah, I didn't even know. And I wasn't answering my phone, so he didn't try and call me. I didn't even know he was covering mine for Stacy and I's anniversary. But when I asked for the bill, and then one of the GM came over and said that it was taken care of by Lawrence, I had them reopen the bill so I could order some Remy Martin Louis the 13th.
Why not?
And really make Prez pay for it. So Teddy, it makes up for those 50 or 60 calls you get on NFL Sunday before the first quarter is even over, complaining about missed field goals, hurting totals.
I don't do that
Tom Brady
anymore.
sucks. Tom Brady sucks.
I don't do that shit anymore. Carm, let's get to some actionable info. Guys, hit that like button, please. It's been a fun show. Dude, Winnipeg is playing Calgary. This is an afternoon game. It starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. How do you suggest we bet this?
Yeah, I've talked about it on Puck Time, and I'm going to continue over the next couple of weeks up until the up until the March 8th trade deadline. I'm going to fade this Calgary team. I faded them on Saturday night with my clients. We took Detroit plus money. They get the win 5-0. I just think this is a Calgary team right now that is struggling to put wins together. They're completely inconsistent, and this team is playing themselves out of a playoff spot. Not that they were anywhere close, but this is their schedule for Calgary over the next 12 days or so. They play the Jets and the Bruins, the Jets today and then the Bruins at home. Then they're in Edmonton. Then they're back home to play the Kings, Pittsburgh, Seattle, then Tampa, Florida, which in between the Tampa and Florida game is the trade deadline, and I think they're going to move Markstrom. And then Carolina and Colorado. Those are all playoff teams battling for playoff spots or already in the playoffs as of now. I can't see them winning more than, I thought, 4 games max. I don't even think they'll win 3 of these games against them. Winnipeg, different. They're probably, along with Vancouver, probably the best teams in Canada, the way they've been playing all season long. 10-1-2 in December, 8-3-1 in January, 3-2 thus far in February. This is a team that wins, and no one talks about them because they're Winnipeg and they're just smack in the middle somewhere of Canada, and people just don't see them the same way as they see teams like Montreal or Toronto or the Edmonton Oilers or even Vancouver. We're having a great season. I like Winnipeg here. This is the first of 2 games for them. 3 wins off of a 5-game losing streak. They're starting to put it back together again, and you're getting a low price on them, between 120 and 130. You've got to lay, looking at the WagerTalk live lines right now. So it's the Winnipeg Jets for me, as I find a way in every single game that Calgary is going to play over the next 2 weeks. I'm going to try and find a way to fade them. I won't be doing it every single game because obviously price dictates a lot of that.
I got no follow for this because you just kind of answered it at the very end. I was going to talk about how Calgary had lost, or Winnipeg had lost 3 in a row, the last 2 as favorites, and if ever there's a bounce back spot for them. And you're like, no, there's no bounce back spot for this team between now and the All-Star break. A straight fade of the Calgary Flames. Let's look on to the second game, that you wanted to talk about. And that, of course, is not a game. It's a match. Champions League, Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan. Break it down for us, Carmine Bianco.
Yeah, so these are 2 teams. I'm looking at the total here just because last week, the round 1, or as we call it, leg 1 of the Champions League kicked off for the round of 16. I went 4-0 over the Tuesday and Wednesday with Champions League, and a couple of the plays were just dead straight unders because normally in these ones, and evenly matched affairs, and this one is an evenly matched one. Inter Milan, top of the league in Italy, and I think the best team in Italy right now. And their form carries over into these European tournaments as well, too. You've got Atletico Madrid, who are, I think, top 5 or top 6 in La Liga. And I just like the under in this one. You look at Inter, and Inter's been phenomenal at home. 17 games this season across all competitions. They've only allowed 7 goals in those games. They've got a high goal rate, but again, when you're playing some of the lesser teams in Italy, those 4 or 5-0 wins sort of add up for this team. In Champions League, in group stages, they played 3 home games. There was a total of 4 goals in those games at home for them. They play great defense. Atletico's coming. The train of thought here is always with these teams is come and try and get a result away in leg 1 because you have leg 2 at home, and there's an advantage to playing the second because you know what you need to do on your home pitch. They're going to come and they're going to look to play defense. They've gone under the total in 8 of their last 9 games. Atletico has on the road this season. So I just see a low scoring affair. This sits at most books at 2.5, and it's started to creep down to 2.25 goals right now. So which is your bet split over the total of 2, and it's the bet split over the total of 2.5. I think the under is the right play here in a low scoring game that's likely going to end 0-0, 1-0, or 1-1. I have a feeling.
Well, let me ask you, Carm. I mean, in these games where it's, we have 2 legs, you have a rematch on deck. Are the first games tending to be lower scoring, the leg 1 games, or is it the leg 2 games that tend to be lower scoring affairs?
No, excellent, Teddy. Excellent question, because that's happened over the last few years, especially in these evenly matched ones. Unless something happens within a game, penalty kicks or a red card that can totally skew the total when you have odd man advantages. A game like this, you would normally think it's going to be 1-0. Both teams want to get some type of a result and not be out of it before they return home and play in the second game. So Atletico, so they're going to play defense. They're going to have 10 men behind the ball and look to try and control this game, keep Inter from scoring. And even if Inter does score, they'll still continue to play. They're not going to open the game up. They're still going to continue to play the same style and say, hey, we're down 1-0 heading home. It's a workable result. And that's why we see lower scoring games in leg 1.
Carm, when's the blue card come into play?
It's going to be in some lesser leagues. It's not going to be in any of the top leagues right now. For those who are wondering, the blue card it's a little weird, Lawrence. I think
it's genius.
I don't think so. I get it, time wasting and what have you. But here's the thing: when you give the officials in a game an extra duty to do now and hand out like blue cards for time wasting, a player's got to stay off on the sides for 2 to 3 minutes. When you give them another option to screw up the game, they normally will do it. So the less control they have, the better. That's what VAR is for. That's what,
think about
how many NFL calls and how many soccer calls.
The argument against that, however, is at least one team won't get some ridiculous red card and get stuck down a man for 75 minutes. Carmine Bianco, what an outstanding freaking weekend you had, my brother. You are rolling, and I love it. It makes me so happy. 7-0 weekend. You're up 47 units in February, 41-21. Dude, you're seeing it great. Your clients must be thrilled. I know we at WagerTalk are. What do you got going today?
Yeah, so 3 plays up in the NHL. One of them is an afternoon game. So if you miss out on that, I will have a 2-pack up with the remaining games in the NHL. Champions League soccer for tomorrow and for Wednesday will be up shortly this afternoon while I'm watching some of the games on TV. And WagerTalk put together a great deal, 53 units between soccer and hockey in February in the first 18 days, which is a pretty good run, I'm going to say. And you can get the rest of NHL right through to the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup final. And then all soccer past that Stanley Cup, because there are 3 big tournaments this season. The Euros, of course, in Italy, Euro 2024. We got the Copa America in the U.S. Being held there for the first time, and then the Leagues Cup. So 3 big tournaments, and all of them end on July the 15th. So this package will go to July 15th for those 2 sports, every single play I release.
Outstanding. Thanks for joining us, brother. Guys, we've hit over 100 likes. It's time for your daily presidential address. Okay, guys, real quick, we got 2 games starting in the next 10 minutes. I love the Boston Bruins tonight. They're -1 today, starts in 10 minutes, -140 against Dallas. Great spot to bet the Bruins, especially after they were up 3-1 in the third against the Kings and lost in overtime. Some terrible refereeing in that game. I also love the over in the Toronto and St. Louis game at 6.5. That play goes in 10 minutes. And I've got my favorite bet for you coming up. But before we get into that, guys, I'm in absolute must-bet mode, especially with my NHL plays right now. I'm winning my NHL every single day. Pretty much won 10 of my last 12 days of betting NHL. I'm on a 7-1 run in NHL right now, a 13-3 run. I'm up double-digit units of profit on the season. I got a very rare 4% play. 90% of my plays are 2s and 3s. This is a 4% play. It does go in a few hours. Make sure to bet that play. I also had a winning college basketball day Saturday. I went 1-1 Sunday. I'm up double-digit units in that sport as well. I have 2 NHL bets, 2 college basketball bets for my clients. Go get them. Now, here's a play that I did not release to my clients, but I really should have. Tampa Bay Lightning. Minus 160 against Ottawa tonight. Guys, this is such a great spot for Tampa Bay. I am not a Tampa Bay fanatic under any circumstances, but they just lost 9-2 against the Florida Panthers. They are going to come out flying tonight. I like Tampa Bay in the first period, and I like Tampa Bay on a whole. Plus, Ottawa stinks. This is such a good bet from me. I'm personally betting it. I'm personally putting 2% of my bankroll on it. So take the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's it for the show. Teddy, I can't wait for tomorrow, brother. Take us home.
Enjoy the games and best of luck with your wagers. WagerTalk Today will return